It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Homeschool, it has become, I don't know if trend is the right word, it's certainly on trend in a lot of places at the moment, booming across Australia. The trend is only heading up, and yet it's one of those things that is perplexing, confusing. Everyone says, I think I'd like to do it, but there's no way I could do it. Actually, I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people say there's no way I could do it. In my family, we are homeschooling two of our children, and new data highlights that more and more people are choosing this option. I decided that I'd reach out to the CEO of Australia's largest K-12 homeschooling organisation. It's called Euka, E-U-K-A, Euka. I need to highlight at the outset, this is not a sponsored podcast. Two of my kids do use the Euka system though, and I figured if I was going to reach out to anyone, I wanted to go to the biggest and the one that my kids are using. It's just easier that way. So to kick off this conversation today, I'm joined by Brett Campbell. Brett is the CEO of Euka. And Brett, just thanks for giving me some time today. I'm really excited to ask all of the hard, curly, tricky questions about homeschool.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you very much. Glad to be here, and feel free to fire anything at me and I'll do my absolute darndest to help you out. Really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
I want to start with the personal. Tell me about your family, kids, and whether they're homeschooling or not.
Yeah, so I have a very small family at this current moment. I've got one daughter who's 3.5, going on 16. The light of my eye, right? Children really do, from my perspective, change the way you look at the world. The answer to, is my daughter homeschooling? Well, she's 3.5, so technically she's not at let's call it the typical school age where you start school. But something my co-founder actually said to me on our podcast where we talk about, homeschooling and parenting and so forth as well. I often get asked the question of, are you going to homeschool your daughter? I'm the co-founder and CEO of the largest homeschooling, organisation in the country. Got tens of thousands of students across the country. And initially, how I would answer it was, most likely, I probably will. A lot of parents and adults I was this type of person as well before I fell into the homeschooling world, was I thought teaching was you're sitting in a classroom and you have to go through textbooks, or you have to do this and do your exam and then it'll test how good you are at something. But that's not what learning really is. There's many, many different ways on how you can teach and educate your children. So the short answer is I currently am homeschooling my daughter.
Right. The 3.5-year-old, she's booming. Let's shift into a more general conversation about homeschooling. It seems to be having a moment, as I alluded to in the intro. What are the trends that you're seeing at Euka and why? I mean, the trend is obviously on the up. That's been in the news and all that sort of thing. So I'm interested in some specifics around that trend, but more particularly, why are more and more families opting out of the mainstream school system and private schooling and saying, we're going to do this at home?
Yeah, well, that's an amazing question. And I'm a data guy and I love data. So there's obviously a lot of anecdotal reasons as to why we may assume parents and families are doing it, but I could share actual data with you on that. But first, I think it's really important to highlight homeschooling itself, because homeschooling, to most parents who have never heard about it, is they look at it through the lens of what they thought homeschooling was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So my first inception of homeschooling, 30 years ago when I was living in New Zealand, and there was a family down the road. There was about five kids. They were a religious family, and they didn't go to school. And I was like, "What are they doing, Mum? Like, why don't they go to school?" And they're all out on their front lawn playing. They always looked happy and running around, and they're sitting down having lunch together. And I'd be like, "Wow, what's that?" And she goes, "Oh, it's homeschooling." So I had this perception that homeschooling was only for religious families who wanted to teach their children a very specific way of education. Fast forward to today, and especially fast forward since social media has arisen. I mean, social media has played, I believe, a monumental part in this. So if we look at the hottest topic right now, school bullying and school refusal. So school refusal has been on the increase quite dramatically over the last, let's call it 3 to 5 years. COVID shone a spotlight on education, and it shone a spotlight on a different way of doing something. Which I think was quite magical in a sense. But there's a number of reasons as to why families are turning to homeschooling. From a data perspective, 24% of our students come to us due to reasons of bullying and socialization at school, which is that's essentially a quarter of our cohort are coming for that specific reason. To give you an example, 2010 to 2020, anxiety and depression in young children is up 100, 200, 300%. Suicides are up. Self-harm is, and we're not talking small amounts here. We're talking like major increases in these specific areas. So this day and age, your children are exposed to online social platforms all day, every day. They're laying in their bed at 9:30 scrolling through when they probably shouldn't be, but they're on their phone and they're being bullied or they're being made fun of. And this isn't everyone, but it's a large enough cohort to really have to stand up and have conversations about this. So 24% due to bullying. We've got about 20% select homeschooling due to academic reasons. So it's not really working for them for academic reasons. We've got 18%, and this is an interesting one, 18% of students or families come to us for a philosophy of education. So they are looking for a better and a different way to schooling their students and what they're exposed to during schooling. And just a couple more to share. So about 13% utilize homeschooling for special needs or individualized learning. And we've got a large growing cohort, 7% of families are traveling families. But the main ones is the bullying, schools not working for academic reasons, and then the philosophy of education.
Homeschooling, I want to say it isn't for everyone. I'm sure that you'll probably, shrug your shoulders and say, well, maybe it could be. But I regularly have parents say, oh, I could never do that. And the reality is, if you're going to homeschool, some people will say you have to be in a privileged position to be able to have somebody who is at home who can guide the children through their learning and be a participant in their child's learning. With double income households, that certainly makes that challenging. What kind of families thrive in this homeschooling environment?
Yeah, again, a very wide variety, but it isn't for everyone, but it is for a lot more people than you think. And for a lot of parents who say they can't do it, they can, but it also might not be the best thing for you and or your family or your lifestyle situation. But the beauty of what we've been able to do in our program is our program's written to the student. The amount of times we hear parents and, whether it's leaving us a 5-star review or they're just, emailing us and going, my child, I have not seen this child in years. I thought I lost my child and now they're back because they're in an environment where they can flourish and they feel like they're in that environment where they can be themselves, which is super unique and unbelievable.
I have 2 more questions about homeschooling. One of them is a massive concern for many, many families, and it's certainly something that we've struggled in our own homeschooling experience, and that is socialisation. How do students that are studying from home, who are doing the homeschool curriculum, how do they connect with peers, and what opportunities are there for that consistent socialisation that children get at school? We've found that it requires vastly more effort and, frankly, more money to have the kids enrolled in different extracurricular activities so that they can have contact. And it's still not the same as having the daily interaction with a school buddy.
Yeah, that's probably one of the top 3, I guess, biggest initial roadblocks for parents. I would sit on the other side of that and go, homeschooling kids can, and many of them are more socialized. Socialization doesn't mean how much time you spend with another child. It's the quality of those interactions with another child.
It's about building friendships. It's about having having somebody that you can ring and or go down the street and bang on the door and say, "Hey, let's go for a bike ride." And the local school seems to facilitate that in a better way. We have not been able to crack that egg.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I'd be lying if I didn't say it's, of course it's easy to see your mates at school every day because you're in the same classroom 7 hours a day with them. But there's lots and lots of homeschooling families around. There's lots of online homeschooling communities. I mean, we have a community. You'll be surprised. There's probably more families than you realize now doing it. And, often a lot of families do lots of meetups. They can go to local parks. They can do sort of activities together. To your point earlier, my daughter, she goes to gymnastics, she goes to swimming. We've got a few friends around the street that she hangs out with. We have a community for our students, but it's more for the parents right now. where you can connect and collaborate. And hey, where are you from? Oh, cool, we're doing this. And we've actually had families who have been traveling around the country, and they met up at a caravan park, and they found out they were doing the same program. And so that will start to evolve. Absolutely.
Okay, having the CEO of the largest homeschooling organisation in the country in a podcast is wonderful for me because I've got some skin in the game. And this one is very much about me getting some, therapy. That's the wrong word. Getting some expert advice from you at a personal level. Having said that, I suspect that a lot of people would be wondering the same thing. My second youngest daughter is going into grade 10 next year. Year 9 was going to be a year off school, a year of homeschooling, and then we were going to reintegrate her into the school system. But as the years progressed and we've seen the delight that she's experienced and as she's identified that she really likes what she's doing as well, we've started to second guess that. The difficulty that we're facing, or at least the perceived difficulty that we're facing, is that she has very high academic aspirations. She wants to go to university. She wants to participate in medicine. That's the direction she wants to travel. And there's that little, as a result of a lack of knowledge on my part, there's that little whisper, that little niggle behind my left ear saying, I think you need to get her back into school. I think she needs to go and get a proper year 12 graduation and get an ATAR so that she can get into university and go down that pathway. What's your response when people start to look at those later years of high school and say, traditional schooling, homeschooling, how viable is the alternative model?
Yeah. First of all, very good question, and I could maybe give you a little bit of therapy on it, as you said.
Very good.
No, so this is the exact reason why we've created our grade 11 and grade 12 university pathway program. So we released it last year. We're the only company in the country that, organization that offers this.
I didn't even know you did. So this was not a setup question. This was
that wasn't a setup. Well, it was a great setup, good segue. But no, in all honesty, because you're right, there's a segment of students who still do want to pursue that. There's a segment of students that just want to go through TAFE. There's a segment of students that just have to finish high school because you now legally have to be registered, right? There's a segment of students that want to go into apprenticeship. So there's so many different pathways post, that year 12 mark. So we created 11 and 12. One of the biggest unique differences is we don't have exams. Now, for some people, it's like, oh my God, how do you test validity and viability of their skills and knowledge? And first of all, I don't know about you, but whenever I did an exam, I would just cram the night before, have mass memory holding, and then the next day I'd do the exam, and then the day after I'd forgotten what I didn't learn.
Sure.
Now, again, that's probably more on me in the way that I approach exams. But for a lot of kids, it brings anxiety and a lot of pressure, and because your whole year is going to be governed based off this one percentage that you get at the end of the year. I mean, I don't know about you, but that doesn't breed, hey, if you do something and you don't do it correctly, you get another chance to better it and learn from that. But back to the grade 11 and 12 is it's assessment based throughout the year, right? So throughout the year, instead of putting all the pressure in one element towards the end, you do assessments for each subject throughout the year. They get marked if they, from what our teachers, and just to be clear on this, only grade 11 and 12, we have teacher marking.
Right.
So it's all the other program is sort of self-led and self-marked, and then you send that back over to the department. Just want to be clear on that. And essentially, you're doing assessments throughout the year. From there, if you've passed and you've done a good piece of work, it'll get marked off. If it doesn't, our teacher will go, hey, we need to relook at this, redo that, resubmit it, and give them an opportunity to learn it, right? I think that's the main stay there. And we have relationships with pretty much every major university in the country. And essentially, they see Euka certification at the end of the year, just the same they see other schools' education parameters. So you can go through, you can do our grade 11, grade 12. A lot of our students in grade 11 and 12, they're in that sort of age range as well, where a number of them they'll have a part-time job and they'll work half a day and they'll do their schooling. I mean, they're already earning money and they're already in the society and they're functioning, and they've got a little bit of a head start as well. So from that perspective, you can, and we've also got relationships as well with other Cardiff University, UK. We've got some American ones. So we'll pretty much have any university that a student really wants to go to, we have that direct relationship.
Brett, let's do a lightning round. Very short answers, one word, one sentence. Are you up for it? 7 quick lightning round questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you can tell by the start of this podcast, I struggle to give one-word answers. I should be a politician. Let's kick off and I'll do my best with one words.
What's the biggest misconception about homeschooling that you would like to bust right now?
It's not for me.
Morning person or a night owl when it comes to homeschooling generally? What's going to work for most people most of the time?
Yeah, very different. It's split. The beauty about homeschooling is you can build it around your lifestyle. We have some families who don't start doing any work until like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
Like once you realize that for homeschooling, and again, I told you I can't do a short answer, I'm sorry. But when you realize that, the baseline of homeschooling is you can do 90 minutes to 2 hours a day and you will go through the entire curriculum at the same pace anyone would if they're doing a full school day. Like you got to look at that and go, oh, wow. And then you can plan days and other things in and around that.
One essential resource for every homeschooling family.
I think things like in all fairness, I'm not just blowing smoke up your pipe, but learning to be a better parent and understanding what it's like to be a parent, because the decision of homeschooling will become I believe it will become quite natural and easy when you're in alignment with, how you want your family unit to be.
Lightning round number 4, scariest thing about starting to homeschool.
That you feel that you've put so much pressure that you feel your child's entire education is wrapped up in this, right? We put too much pressure of it. It's like, I remember when I got taken out of a school for a day, I thought, oh no, am I going to be behind? Like the pressure parents put on, their kid being taken out of school for a week or 2 weeks or 6 weeks or even 6 months. It's not as big a end outcome as you're probably thinking.
Homeschooling in 5 years, what's changed?
Now you legally have to be registered at school till you're 17. And there's a lot of children who aren't registered in school. And that's becoming I guess they're trying to put some provisions around it because they know that it's no longer sort of an underbelly way of educating. And they realize that, you can actually have many, and we have many successful students. One of our 13-year-old boys actually got accepted into one of our university partners, and it's because he's a genius. And so it's, it's changed in so many ways.
2 more. Every homeschooling parent should know. Finish the sentence. Every homeschooling parent should know
that you're doing the best that you can with what you have. And what I mean by that is, again, as parents, we put so much pressure on ourselves to try and make sure that we're not making any wrong decisions, etc. But we're also still learning and evolving ourselves. I think if we relieve ourselves from having so much pressure on our shoulders, and pat yourself on the back, take a few deep breaths. I think it's, that you're doing the best that you can. And if you're not getting what you want from your family unit, this is where I always go back to is, start listening to more podcasts, educate yourself, understand where we're lacking as a family unit, and look to grow and prosper in that.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. How do you handle 6 daughters? I want it. I love it. First of all, talk to me about having 6 daughters.
So the first thing I would say, a lot of people sort of say things like, oh, gee, you poor thing, or, well, what did you do wrong in the last life? I get that a lot, or don't you have a TV? And my response to that is fairly consistently, well, number one, we do have a TV, but we found much more fun things to do than watch TV, hence the 6 kids. But at a more serious and fundamental level, having 6 daughters has been just the delight and thrill of my life. It is extremely hard. It's absolutely tiring, but they are just the greatest the greatest delight. And anyone who has a child and has those moments knows what it's like when your 10-year-old walks down the corridor and says, I need a hug, and falls into your arms. Or when your teenager is going through a little crisis and you sit down and spend some time with them and they sob on your shoulder. Or when you watch the delight as they eat a food that you've described as delicious for the first time and their eyes light up and they go, oh my goodness, this is incredible. This is now my favorite food. Or just watching them playing on the sand of the beach or throwing a frisbee to each other in the park. Those moments, I look at my wife Kylie and I just say, wouldn't have done it any different. This is the greatest joy. Yeah, we love it. We absolutely love it. Interested in chatting with you again down the track. I think that our audience is going to love this. I think that they're going to really respond well to it, and just appreciate your time so much, Brett. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure.
If you would like more info about making your family happier, love for you to jump online at happyfamilies.com.au, especially if you're raising an autistic kiddo. We have a brand new course that is launching, that's about to happen, actually. You can get all the details at happyfamilies.com.au or on our social media platforms. Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families.